Hi everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of March and the new moon that we have coming up in Aries on the 24th, but I'm also going to be talking about some of the longer term trends that are emerging this month for 2020. Now, we've had this huge emphasis of planets in Capricorn, and indeed Mars joined the party on the 16th of February. Now, Capricorn is a great place for Mars to be. It's known as its sign of exaltation. It's going to be staying there until the last day of March when it moves into Aquarius. But this is Capricorn energy with Mars that is great for setting goals, achieving them, driving projects forward. Capricorn is the sign of manifestation par excellence. So this is a very positive place for Mars to be. But it is also, in this second half of March, re-energizing the planetary placements that were there in January. So you remember that we astrologers were talking at great length about this bunching up of planets in Capricorn in January. We had Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, Ceres, South Node, and Mars is going to be tracking over, making conjunctions to all of those positions that we had in January. So, for instance, on the 19th of March, which is the Aries equinox, Mars is going to be coming to 22 degrees of Capricorn, exactly where the Saturn-Pluto conjunction was. It's going to be at 22 degrees of Capricorn for the 19th and the 20th of the month. But because it's happening at the Aries equinox, whenever we have an equinox or a solstice, it's like striking a tuning fork for the next 3 months. It sets up a context or certain themes for the following 3 months. So this is very much going to be re-triggering that whole theme in January, which, as I've spoken before, one of the big themes is about right use of power or abuse of power. I think we're seeing that in the world very clearly. You may be seeing it in your personal lives, that the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, Capricorn is about top-down power. We're seeing more autocracy in the world. We're seeing more extreme leadership in many countries. But equally, that is happening as part of the collapse of the old order, because if any corruption emerges from those top-down governments, leaders, etc., then ultimately it is the collapse of the old paradigm that won't happen quickly necessarily. Pluto stays in Capricorn until 2024, but I think it's very clear as to the process that we're seeing, that where leadership or governments or big institutions lack integrity and accountability, they will be found wanting, and eventually that will corrode the power longer term over the next few years. So Mars is going to energize that process. So right use and abuse of power, energized through particularly the second half of March. So Mars comes to 22 of Capricorn on the 19th and 20th. It then, between really up until the 23rd, it comes to conjunct Jupiter, Pluto, and also Aries in their current positions. It also, by the last day of March, 31st, it comes to conjunct Saturn at 0 of Aquarius, because Saturn, as I'm going to talk about in a moment, is moving into Aquarius in the last week of March. So taking those one by one, Saturn conjunct Jupiter. Now this can bring rewards, it can bring a lot of success for you. So see where these degrees, particularly 22 to 24 of Capricorn, are falling in your chart, because this can be a very positive time for you with this Mars-Jupiter conjunction. It's driving projects forward as well. Then on the 22nd and 23rd of the month, Mars is coming to conjunct Pluto. That gives tremendous focus, but it can also be very aggressive action. It can be lording things over other people, or might makes right. When Mars eventually comes to conjunct Saturn at the end of the month, that is very good for discipline and long-term focus on a project. But taken all together, this is really replaying January. Mars will energize those planetary positions in January and those themes. Jupiter, for the second half of March, is also just moving between 22 and 24 of Capricorn. Those same degrees again. So Jupiter will expand whatever was happening. So what all this means personally for you, and as I say, we're going to see this playing out in the world in a significant way, it means that whatever was happening for you in January is likely to be happening in a stronger and a bigger way in this second half of March. Okay, so see where particularly the last 10 degrees of Capricorn are falling in your chart, which house area, which area of life. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. You can check out this link above. That will take you to my store, and you can buy a 2-part tutorial video series that will explain how to find these positions in your chart. And I'm currently giving the meaning for you. But what's important as well, if we're thinking of a longer term theme, is whatever you were doing, what you were involved with in January in that area of life, as I say, is going to be repeating in a bigger, stronger, louder way in the second half of March. But this is also the setup, what is also going to develop for you in the second half of 2020. Because when Mars is coming to conjunct Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, etc., the conjunction between two planets is always the beginning of a new cycle, the seed point. In the second half of 2020, Mars is going to be moving into its own warrior sign of Aries and squaring all of those planets that it's going to be conjuncting in March. So the square is always the test point of the conjunction. So whatever you're doing in March, which is an echo of what was happening for you in January, is also a setup for the second half of 2020 for you. So not only look to those last degrees of where Capricorn's falling in your chart, if we're thinking longer term, see where those the second half of Aries is falling in your chart, because that area is going to be activated for you as well. And I'd really say here that it's important not to act in any extreme way or overblown way. You might be feeling as if you want to react strongly, you want to react angrily, you want to react impulsively, or you want to take some kind of very assertive action. It's really important at this time that you don't act in an extreme way, because it's important to be measured, to be cautious, to take a breath, take a step back, be mindful of your actions, your behaviour, because it's going to set up how things play out for you in the second half of 2020. I hope that's clear. Okay, let's talk about Saturn now. Saturn moves into Aquarius on the 22nd of March. It stays there until the 2nd of July. It doesn't go beyond 2 degrees of Aquarius. And then it backtracks into Capricorn until December, when it moves fully into Aquarius with Jupiter. And they will both be travelling in Aquarius through 2021 and beyond for Saturn. Okay, Aquarius is an air sign. So this Saturn moving into Aquarius will give us another glimpse of what may be happening further down the road when it fully moves into Aquarius, December and into 2021. Now, we had our first glimpse with the new moon in Aquarius on the 24th of January. What was happening in the world around about that time? Well, one of the big things that was happening, coronavirus was coming into our consciousness in a big way by late January. Coronavirus is airborne. Aquarius is air. So airborne things may become a bigger issue, or it may be the continuation of the coronavirus issue as Saturn is in Aquarius from late March through to 2nd of July. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. Uranus is the planet which is most linked to aviation. So what's happening with travel and flights? Well, Saturn is the planet of constriction, contraction, limitation, rules and regulations. So what's happening? A lot of the flights are being cancelled now. Travel is becoming more limited because people are cancelling flights because of coronavirus, or airlines are cancelling flights. And Saturn's endeavour is always to put walls, borders, boundaries, territorial divisions, quarantines, containment to stop the virus. But coronavirus is airborne, so it doesn't necessarily respect territorial divisions. Right at the end of March, we have Mars coming to conjunct Saturn, 0 of Aquarius, and that's quite militaristic. So we may see stronger, almost more military measures around borders to try and stop the virus entering certain countries. However, Aquarius has it's the most futuristic sign. It has a wonderful side, the most futuristic sign of all. And with Aquarius and Uranus that rules it, things are never linear. They're never gradual. They take quantum leaps into the future. Now, Aquarius, as I've mentioned before, is the outsider, the maverick, the alien. And we know already that for a couple of years now that because of the drop in the magnetic shield around the Earth, and this is measurable, you can easily find this on the internet, a lot more galactic and cosmic energies are coming into our Earth plane, and that is in part contributing to these jumps in consciousness that people are experiencing right now. It's something we've never known in our lifetime. We've always been protected in space by this area known as the magnetic cloud, and our entire solar system is spinning out of that. So we're moving into an unknown, if you like, unfamiliar area of space, allowing very new energies to come in. That is wonderful for our collective evolution. So jumps in consciousness, jumps in energy are very likely at this time. Uranus is the planet linked to Kundalini energy. We may see some big developments in our third eye, opening much more, which may have been quite limited up in our lifetime up to now. But again, it's the quantum leap. Uranus is connected to downloads and insights and flashes of futuristic information. Saturn in this sign, Saturn is to do with the bones, the body's skeleton, the body's teeth, the structure. So we may even see some evolutionary developments in our physical structure. We may see physical upgrades connected to our bones or our DNA to enable us to accommodate these higher level futuristic energies that are coming in for us. So I can barely find the vocabulary for this, but we may be seeing big developments physically and in our consciousness coming in very rapidly, because Uranus and Aquarius are always linked to speed and jumps over 2020, but particularly getting into 2021 and beyond. We could be evolving in ways that we never believed possible. I feel this is almost like a Christopher Columbus moment as well, where we've known our Earth and we thought we knew our place in the galaxy, and all of a sudden, and it may happen in these few months when Saturn's in Aquarius, it may not happen till later in the year, but I think we're going to start to see glimpses of all of a sudden we get a bigger understanding of our reality and the universe in which we operate, which is way beyond what we ever imagined up to now. And as I say, I haven't even got the vocabulary for that now, but I kind of sense it coming down the road. So this is very exciting and very positive for you. So we may, even with these jumps in consciousness, start to discover or rediscover abilities and skills that we may have had as ancient but highly evolved people in the past. Telepathy is something I mentioned last time. So be aware of that, and also be aware of this shift of density, this shift from permanence to, as I've often mentioned, permanent home ownership, car ownership, job for life. We're going to be shifting from that sense of permanence to something which is much more transient, much more exciting, to do with experiences, to do with connecting to other people of like mind. Then we have our new moon on the 24th of the month. This is happening at 4 degrees and 12 minutes of Aries. It's happening at 2:28 a.m. Pacific and 9:28 p.m. UK time. Now, this is the 6th month in a row that we have had a new moon at 4 degrees of its sign. So that really does emphasize this new paradigm that we're shifting into. New moons are always a new beginning. So a great time to set a new intention for what you want to manifest in this area of life. See where 4 degrees of Aries is falling in your chart. But because Mars is in its own sign here, and Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, there really is a feeling of a new beginning. Aries energy is initiatory, it's pioneering, it's entrepreneurial, it can go solo. So there is a kind of surge of, in the Northern Hemisphere, this is our spring really beginning, this surge of fresh new energy that can create a new beginning, a new start for you in this area of life. So see where that's being activated for you. Now, this is a really lovely new moon. We still have a lot of cardinal energy here. We still have our Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, South Node in Capricorn. We've got the Sun, the Moon, always together at a new moon, plus Chiron within a degree, and Eris all in Aries. So again, we've still got this strong cardinality, get the show on the road, making things happen energy. But what is really lovely about this new moon, apart from this fresh, vigorous energy, forward momentum, is that Mercury at 6 of Pisces, Mars at 4 of Taurus are in a tight sextile, and that means that the Sun and Moon and Chiron are at the midpoint of Mercury and Uranus. Now, this can bring in some brilliant and original thinking, out of the box thinking, futuristic thinking, downloads, mind of God connections. And because Chiron is within 1 degree, Chiron's at 5 of Aries, and the Sun Moon at 4 degrees of Aries, and they are all three of them square to the nodal axis at 4 degrees of Cancer, Capricorn. This really is still talking about illness happening in the world, but with this brilliant thinking that we have coming in here, and also together with the fact this new moon is in Aries, together with newness, new ideas, we could see some new ways of thinking about coronavirus, some new healings, some new solutions perhaps. But also this brilliant original thinking is going to apply to your own personal life as well, your own projects, your own inventions. So very positive, this new moon. Don't forget to set your new intention. In addition to that, we have Venus in the last week of March. It's exact on the 28th, it's going to be in a trine to Jupiter and Pluto in late Capricorn. It's going to be at 24 of Taurus in a trine to Jupiter, Pluto in late Capricorn. Now, this can be wonderful for bringing success for you, bringing rewards and bringing recognition. And that can either happen around the house area, the area of life where 24 of Taurus is sitting in your chart, or it can happen where late Capricorn is in your chart. So very positive. For the whole second half of March, Jupiter is going to be conjunct Pluto. It isn't exact until the 5th of April, and indeed we get 3 conjunctions in 2020, in April, June and November. But it isn't exact, as I say, till 5th of April. But nevertheless, it is technically conjunct. Now, this to me is about big money, big power emerging even more strongly in the world, and therefore inequality of those people who don't have big money and big power. But Jupiter will also enlarge, if you like, and accelerate this deconstruction process and transformation that Pluto is taking us through. So it will accelerate potentially the dysfunction, the crumbling of the old paradigm in all the very obvious chaotic ways we're seeing it in the world, because it has to break it down completely, like the tree falling in the wood and rotting down completely before it can start to provide new soil for new life. So Jupiter may accelerate that process, and therefore we may be starting to see, even bigger events happening in the world. So don't worry about that. Know that is part of the process. And also, I would say, with any coronavirus worries, try not to go into fear. Fear reduces your immune system. It contracts your DNA. Really stay strong in your thinking and stay as healthy and positive as you can, and feeling that you can almost feel invincible. You can develop your sparkly white shiny bubble around you energetically and really feel invincible, and that will literally strengthen you physically too. The other important aspect to talk about is that Saturn already has come into an out of sign square with Uranus. Now, when Saturn enters Aquarius on the 22nd of March and stays up to the 2nd of July, just to 2 degrees of Aquarius and not beyond, it will be not in an exact square. The exact square won't happen until February 2021, but it is in a pretty tight square. Now, this is often a signature for financial and stock market volatility. So even in the first week of March, we saw huge volatility on the stock markets. We saw a drop of 1 week, I think it was the first week of March, we saw a drop of up to 13% in some stock market indices, massive as a result of the coronavirus. So we are going to see that wild ride, very likely from now till early July, and again returning later in the year into 2021. So again, be prepared for that. Don't go into fear and take whatever actions are relevant for you. But as I always say, the bigger the outer events in the world, the more turbulent they are. And we're going to have a lot of outer action in 2020 because it's such a year of transition and transformation. Turn inwards. Don't let your reference point be outer. Make your reference point inner. Turn into that hub of the wheel and even create, it's a beautiful thing to create in your inner sanctuary, as it were, either a place that you know and love or a place that you imagine. It can be the top of a mountain, it can be at a lakeside, it can be in a deep forest, it can be in a field full of sunflowers or poppies or whatever you want to invent, but that becomes your go-to place. That becomes your go-to sanctuary that you can instantly fall back into, and that will nourish you, sustain you, and bring about this feeling of peace, calm, and that stillness, that permanent sense of still being that is always there. If we can drop into the now, that is where our power lies. If we can withdraw all our focus on the outer world and know that that pillar of silent strength in the now is always there for us, the permanent, ever-present now, in our beautiful sanctuary that we've created visually, that will serve us exceptionally well as we go through 2020. So a lot happening in this second half. We've got a fabulous surging forward, new beginning, new moon on the 24th in Aries. We've got some very strong cardinal energy with a replay of January, but also a setup for the second half of 2020. And remember not to act in an extreme or assertive way. Take a step back, take a breath before any actions or behaviours that you might come to regret a little later on. So I hope that's been helpful for you. If you'd like more information about my books or my teaching videos or even my monthly newsletter, please just check out my website, pamgregory.com. And thanks so much for listening, and bye for now.